Now you may be wondering, how did we get here? And it's pretty simple. This is me. I am Barash the Plat, the glorious and hopefully helpful paladin of learning.
My head.
Today, among other things, we're going to be doing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 101. Just some very, very basic stuff, tips, tricks, other kind of things to try and help people understand the game a little more. Because the game is incredibly complicated. For a lot of people, this might be your first time playing D&D, kind of conceptually. So there's a lot of kind of just basic things which may or may not kind of click immediately. So this stream, among other things, is going to try and go through a playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 and use it as a vehicle to teach about the game in specific, but also teach about D&D in general and kind of role-playing, D20 role-playing games as kind of a concept, as like our larger, broader topic. Okay. So, getting started. Yeah. Baldur's Gate 3. So this Baldur's Gate 3 is functionally just a D&D engine. All it is that they've taken D&D 5th edition, more or less. There's a couple wrinkles, a couple kind of exceptions that I'll point out as we go along. And they've translated everything you can do in that game into a game engine. Now, of course, because that's the case, there's very specific kind of typical things you can do in D&D and in this game that are going to feel a little arbitrary. The ways things interact, and also on top of that, this is built on the Divinity engine, which means that there's very specific kind of interactions that go with that. Hello, standby. Yes, the moon does rise. The mad druid. Although I'm not playing a druid, honestly. I'm not going to do it because druids, there's some really interesting and fun, unique druid lore in Act 1. And I don't want to spoil that for anyone. Paladin's a nice neutral class that gets lots of... Paladin is like a great training wheels class, because Paladin, similar to Fighter, Paladin hits things just really absurdly hard and doesn't die. So we're going to get into kind of class recommendations and all those kind of things as we go along, but just starting here, I have literally just created my character, launched the game, and here we are. Let's take a look at the UI. Let's talk about what the UI tells us, how to use it, and yeah, Paladin, if you're just starting the game, well, okay, we'll do our UI talk first, and then we'll do a class talk. To start with, let's take a look at the UI and just kind of get an understanding of what goes where and what's going to do what. Now, this is the PC UI, but a lot of this stuff, like all the options that I'm going to be talking about, are also available on PS5. They just require slightly different button presses to get in and out of things. So, you have your basic character. Your character is your player avatar. You have... This may look like a lot of buttons, but a lot of these buttons are only used in certain circumstances. So you kind of get to learn what's what. I highly recommend increasing your rows just right off the top, because you go from this to this, and because you're gonna fill out your sheet as you get more abilities and as you level up, it's just gonna give you more space to work with and just kind of make it less crowded and less complicated. On PS5, unfortunately, you have the radial menu system, which is, they really need to... You can customize your radial menus, which I actually recommend doing if you want to play this game a lot, go through and kind of select which buttons you want to use and which buttons you're not going to be using as much, so you don't have to page through menus so much. Because unfortunately, the radial menus will keep adding more and more wheels, and where they put stuff feels very arbitrary. It can even change from combat to combat, kind of oddly. Okay, so when you're exploring the game, these are how you interact with the world. You have actions, you have bonus actions, and then we'll get to these later. Let's just start with actions. So, actions are the main ways you both interact in combat and sometimes with the world. These are all your combat actions specifically, so we'll start there. Or actually, we'll start with that when we get into combat. Let's just talk about the camera and about interacting with the world. So, your camera controls are WASD on PC and the left control stick on PS5. On PC, if you hold Shift, it'll give you the vision overlay. We'll use that later so you can see what it looks like. But it also, the little sun icon beside your reticle, beside your clicker rather, actually tells you how much light is on you. And we can move it around, and it'll tell us in a glance whether we're obscured, whether we're partially obscured, or whether we're in full light. So as you can see, currently we're partially obscured. That's going to come in later for some of the stealth mechanics, but it's just a useful key press to know. The next important key press to know is Alt. And as you can see, I can see something already up here. There's something labeled Onyx. So Alt is kind of your highlight everything, kind of hotkey to see what's on the ground, see what's interactable around you, although it's a little selective. I'm not entirely sure what the definition is, but as an example, there's this nursery here, which is interactable, but it doesn't tell me I can interact with it. So left click to move around. Right click to interact with things in a more complex way. On PS5, you can do this by clicking on your left stick to detach the camera from your character. Then you can move the reticle around, click on things, and X to interact as if it was a left click, square to interact as if it was a right click. So anytime I'm talking about left clicks and right clicks, I'll try and remember to also give you the PS5 controls. But generally, if it's a left click, it's going to be your X button. If it's a right click, it's going to be your square button. I'm not sure what the controls are for Xbox. I haven't played it, so I have no experience with that whatsoever. Okay. So immediately looking around our surroundings, a huge thing in this game, is that when you're hovering over an object, if it can be interacted with, it will have this little gear icon here. And if it can be looted, it'll be this lovely little treasure chest icon. Or, well, it's less that it can be looted if it's a container of some sort, and bodies are apparently containers. Don't think too heavily about that. So, let's do a little bit of wandering around and looking at things. And also, it's important to keep an eye on your pointer, because when you're hovering your pointer over things, it's going to give you a lot of information. And in PS5, this will be your reticle. But basically anything that is is targetable, see how it lights up? Any object that you can interact with or somehow touch or have some kind of interaction with is going to light up like this when you hover over it. So whenever you're kind of if you're in a room and you want to figure out what's going on, just hover your mouse and or reticle over things and kind of just search out the area and kind of get a better idea of what's there. And this game heavily rewards exploration, investigation, and a close eye for detail. It loves hiding things in plain sight. It loves putting alternate paths or puzzles or even just visual clues to tell you things. So, let's go click on this Mind Flayer pod. See what happens.
Someone else got out.
So yeah, when in an area, there's often going to be a lot of just kind of, let's call them lore items, things that aren't directly interactable, but either have some, like when you click on them, your character's gonna say a quick line, and it's gonna tell you something about the world or something about the area.
Made it out alive.
So like if we look in here, can we actually see anyone there? Yeah, you can just barely see a body in there that's like burned. So it looks like someone else didn't survive the explosion. This one's empty, so we click on this one.
Other survivors.
Might be other survivors. So yeah, it's interesting to wonder, like, I wonder who else was in this room with us at the same time.
Who's inside?
Yeah, so like, this one's empty. Like, I wonder if Asterion, like, Asterion was in that pod, because he mentions when you meet him. And this is only going to be talking about the very first part of the game, and as we go through, we'll add more. But yeah, so hello. You haven't missed much. Feel free to go back and just like check out the VOD if you want to, but I'll just kind of recap. I'll put a little capper on this first little chapter. All we talked about was getting into the game and looking at objects, recognizing that any object that you can interact with, you can hover over with either your mouse or your reticule, and doing so allows you to really kind of inspect the environment ahead of time. Because the game is... You explore in live action, but the game is functionally turn-based whenever it matters. And I'm not sure if there's a shortcut for this on PS5, but on PC you can hit Shift and Space to turn on turn-based mode at any time. And I heavily recommend, if you're ever feeling like under pressure, to just hop in here, because it just gives you time to think. Because when you're in turn-based mode, nothing moves, everything just stops, and it's funny because it makes a bubble, a time stop bubble around you that has an actual radius. So things outside that bubble will still move around. So it's funny if you're up on like a cliff, you can hit stop. You can hit turn-based mode, and you can see things outside your bubble are still moving around. It's kind of fun. Anyway, so we're gonna leave time-based mode, and we're just gonna go look around. So, again, on PC versus PS5, your camera is gonna be a little farther out, as you can see. On PS5, you can, if you pull back on the right trigger, it'll pull you out. Some of these controls I'm going to be kind of hit and miss on. However, if you hit O, like the letter O on keyboard mouse, it'll take you into tactical mode, which is actually top-down mode. This does also exist on PS5. You're just going to have to look into controls on how to do that. Okay, so another thing that I've done here is in areas, when you find any object that has this little chest icon is lootable. So, and anytime you want to loot an object and you want to have your own inventory up, you can click this little button, and it'll bring up your inventory alongside. It's a nice little trick to have. Sorting your inventory is also very useful, because you can sort by latest stuff, so you can see what you got recently. Sort by latest. We can see we got this nice little thieves tools, a little bit of gold. And you can sort, there's 4 different sorting options, but there's also a nice little filter system here. So if I want to see only potions, just type in potions and blah. So don't be afraid to kind of like, it's pretty verbose, it's pretty well set up to do so. So as you can see in this room, let's go back to using some of our basics. So let's hold Alt and see what else is showing up on this. Oh look, there's a chest up there, and there's a piece of onyx up there. So how do I get up there? If we look around, aha! It looks like there's a path leading up here. So let's do a quick up and around to go take a look. grab this onyx. And ooh, look, there's a rune slate here. And because it has the little gear icon, I know I can interact with it in some way. So let's see what it does.
Visions project into your mind. A nautiloid hurtling through the plains, resplendent with psionic energy.
So, so this little object, let's find out what this is. So this is a rune slate apparently. So holding this tablet causes a flash of inscrutable images to appear before your eyes before vanishing, leaving a mild headache in their place. So it's like every academic treatise I've ever. It's like reading an academic forward. So this object has it. Oh look! So I hover over this little icon here, and we get item weight. So an item's weight affects how much strength is needed to move, pick up, or throw an item. So I've learned from this, I can move items, I can pick them up, and I can also throw them. And it also how much it deals if it hits something. So now I know the heavier an item does, the more damage it does. If I, you're not wrong. PC controls are a little more granular and a lot less streamlined, but it does give you a lot more. All of this stuff is available. Like, all of the stuff that I'm doing is you can do on PS5, and it usually has to do with hitting the square button to quote-unquote right-click. Like, the right-click button, whenever you hover over anything, look at the bottom of your screen, because it's constantly going to have your options, your button options, are going to show right down here. Let me see if I can swap over. I wonder. Let me try something. Pardon me, folks. I'm seeing if I have I have a plug-in controller kicking around somewhere around here. Riveting television, I know. I'll find that for next stream. I believe I have a, yes, the rummaging noises in the background. Actually, no, wait, here it is. Okay, let's see if this will just plug and play for me. Don't worry, that was my PC noise. Okay, yeah, here we go. So, I've just plugged in a controller. And now we're playing with it's a PS4 controller, but same difference. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do the same thing I just did in PS5. So I see an object. If I just want to use it, I have the nice big X there to tell me to use it. However, if you look in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, I have Examine, Context Menu, and Action. So let's look at the context menu. So this gives me all the same options that I had by right-clicking on it in PC. So let's go and take a look at Examine. And now, so a big, really important thing is that on PS4, PS5, see how there's a little icon that says Tooltips On? You want to make sure those are on, because it means when you're on an item, it's going to pop out all the information about that thing. Let's look at more details. So this gives me the same information that I had on PC. So we have our item weight, so it tells us a whole bunch of stuff. Also, the weight of carried items counts towards your carrying capacity. What does carrying capacity mean? Let's take a look at that. So carrying capacity is how much weight you can carry on your character. It's determined by your strength. What's my strength? My strength, as a paladin, as a glorious paladin of the realm, is 17, which means I get a +3 to my strength checks. So as you can see, like, we can just like keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. All the information exists in the game. And it does get recursive, because if you notice, we can now go into a recursive loop. But it is useful to look at the six stats and kind of understand to an extent what they do. So we're gonna take a second to look at that in a second. We're gonna dive back out of this. And we're going to pick this object up because we're going to want to take this with us. Now, because this is just, so if we look at this object, it doesn't have any activated abilities. It doesn't have any kind of like special conditions or any other things. It's just an object. It's worth $1. So I'm going to take it with me to sell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that square context menu, and I'm going to add it to my wares. And wares is just basically a flag in your inventory. We'll take a look at that in a second. So we're going to go to our character sheet, and here's our inventory. Oh, actually, let's look at our character sheet for a second, just so we can understand it better. So here's our inventory here on the left. Here's our equipped items. Here's like our equipment. And here's our stats. So I'm a level 1 paladin, Oath of Devotion. And my race is I'm a silver dragonborn. And my background is that I'm a noble. And here are my stats. So strength kind of does what you expect it to do. It allows you to attack with melee weapons. It determines how far you can jump and how much you can carry. And also notice, so if you're ever wondering about anything in the game, you'll notice that this menu here has a little icon on top of it that says inspect. And so if you ever want to inspect, if you're ever looking at a menu and any of the words don't make sense, it's the big middle button right there. Tap on that, and that brings us up our little, this is basically like a little encyclopedia. This is essentially like a games term encyclopedia. So anytime you get lost, big middle button. Yeah, exactly. Anytime you get lost, anytime you're feeling confused, and you just need to kind of like read what the heck is an ability check, what the heck is a difficulty class, you just hit that middle button, and it's going to pop up the nice encyclopedia for you. Okay, so that's our strength. So as a paladin, what's my job? I'm gonna stand in front, I'm gonna tank big hits. I mean, it's a really complicated game. You're basically learning Dungeons and Dragons, which is like a massive system in a very short period of time. But let's break it down and kind of make it really simple. Because what are the D&D as a whole is two things. It's dice rolls and making poor decisions. And the dice rolls help substantiate your poor decisions. So D&D is a collaborative narrative. So basically, your DM, which is in this case is the game, is trying to tell a story, and it's giving you options. It's a choose-your-own-adventure, functionally. So the dice kind of just add an element of both chaos, because you can fail rolls and have something go horribly wrong, but also a way to kind of show your strengths and weaknesses. So if we look at my stats, I have 17 strength and I have 15 charisma. So the things that, like, how much do I want to break this down? Honestly, yeah. Oh, no worries. So basically the way that it works is that anything, so 10 is considered dead average. So you get no bonus, but you have no negatives either. Anything that's above 10 means that you're exceptional in some way. So, as an example, strength of 17 means I'm +3. I'm 3 steps above what would be considered average. So when I roll my d20 to make a check, I get a +3 to that. So any strength check, I'm going to do pretty well at. An 8 means that it's a weakness for me. So I'm getting a -1 on those checks. So anytime an intelligence check comes up, and we can actually take a look at what intelligence checks mean. If we go to proficiencies. Okay. So here's the skills page. So what I did there was I went to character sheet. I hit R1 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And this takes us to proficiencies. This tells you what your character's good at. This tells you what your character has an ability to do. So, if we look at my skills, I have a +5 to athletics. And if you notice the little star there, the star tells you that you've chosen to be proficient in that skill. Or some of these are automatically attributed to you by class. some of these are ones that you've chosen. So as an example, I chose to have proficiency in intimidation. At some point, I probably also want to get proficiency in performance or persuasion, or I do. I have perfect. So I can be both intimidating. Yeah, be a bully. I can be both intimidating or persuasive. But so it's when you're playing the game, it's good to come in here and kind of just take a look and see, what am I good at? I definitely don't want to be rolling on Arcana checks because I have a -1 for that. However, the thing is, because you're going to have a party at some point, you can swap between your characters, and because your characters are going to have different stats, a different character might have a better chance at making a roll than you. So sometimes it can pay off. Like, you want to have, like, try and have a balanced party so that you can cover all the types of checks. So, like, have one person be very good at dexterity, have one person be very good at intelligence, one person pretty good at wisdom, one person good at charisma, one person good at strength. And you only have 4 people, so you can kind of have, like, each person gets, like, 2 stats, and you can kind of swap around. Constitution, so we're going to go back and kind of look at the actual stats for a second, but Constitution is kind of an oddball out, because it's rare that you get an active Constitution check, because Constitution is just kind of how tough you are. The biggest thing that Constitution does is it gives you HP. Constitution is part of the math that gives you how many hit points you have. So higher Constitution is going to give you more HP. Yes, like because you're playing a wizard, your Constitution is like 10 or even 8 possibly. In original Dungeons and Dragons, like AD&D, well, so in D&D in general, you technically roll a dice to find out how much HP you have. In original Dungeons and Dragons, wizards had a D4 for their HP. So you could roll your D4. You could start the game with 1 HP, and that was and if you died, you're dead forever. That was in the original Dungeons and Dragons. So it has come forward from there, thankfully. But anyway, so we talked about strength, all about like brawny stuff, kind of like physical strength and the ability to move things. So now let's talk about dexterity. So dexterity affects both, it's an attack stat, so both strength and dexterity are both attack stats. Strength is used for melee weapons, almost exclusively, as well as for very specific ranged weapons. Usually thrown weapons use strength. So like if you're throwing a spear, or if you're throwing a javelin, or a halberd, or there's a couple of other weapons in the game that are throwing weapons. If you're using that, you're using strength. If you're using dex, you're probably using either a light weapon or a finesse weapon as it flies out there, or you're using a bow if you're attacking with dex. Also, it affects your initiative. So it just basically so can I look from here? No. 1 second, we'll go into statistics. Okay, yeah, sorry, it's right there actually. If we look down here, our initiative is +1. So initiative is just literally your dex bonus. So if you look at this, we have a 12 score and a +1 bonus. So basically the way that it works is that every 2, so 10 is the dead middle, 10 is 0, 10 gives you no bonuses. Every 2 above, you get +1. So a 10 is +0, 12 is +1, 14 and 15 are +2, and then 16 and 17 are +3. So as you go, so odd numbers don't give you extra stats, but even numbers do. So this is often why you'll start with 17. Like the spread that we have here is often because if you take an ability increase, you'll then go to 18, which gives you a +4. And because of how the math works in the game, because you have to remember, this game is just math with a fancy covering, and because of that, bigger number go up is good. It's boring, but it's good. Number go up is powerful. So, that's so dexterity covers your initiative. So if you just exactly math with a fancy cover, it like D&D is a gateway to math. That's really all it is. Someone called it spreadsheets the game, and you're not wrong. Also, it affects your armor class, which we'll get into later when we're looking at equipment. Yeah. So Constitution we talked about. Constitution is your physical durability. So you'll make a Constitution check when something's trying to harm you physically in some way. But you're not going to have a lot of active Constitution. You're not usually rolling dice with Constitution. Like you're usually rolling in response. You're not trying to roll to try and do something with your Constitution. It's very rare that you're trying to actually like use your Constitution to achieve something. It's usually responding to something in the environment, like being poisoned or being zapped or whatever. Intelligence. So this is the primary stat for wizards specifically. It's also there's a couple other classes that aren't in this game that use it, but we'll stick with wizards for now. But so wizards use this to roll their attacks. So when you're doing like a fireball, you're gonna roll your d20 and you're gonna add your intelligence bonus to that roll to try and hit something. So having a high intelligence is very important for that. It also there's a bunch of skills which we'll go take a look at now, which are related to intelligence. So it's all of the skills that I have. So I'm trained in history because I'm a paladin with the Oath of Devotion. It comes with my class. So I have a +1, but all of these -1 skills are ones that are to do with intelligence. So investigation, nature, religion, history, and arcana. So these are all skills that someone with high intelligence is going to be good at. It's a lot of unsurprisingly, it's information gathering. It's like, what do I know about arcane? What do I know about history? What do I know about like what are the things I can see in an environment and understand? Investigation's kind of funny one because investigation is how good am I putting things together, rather than how good am I seeing things. Because perception, if you notice, is down here, and that's a wisdom check. So seeing things requires wisdom, but understanding what you're seeing requires an investigation. So that's kind of the delineation there. So we'll go back to our stats. So that's intelligence. Wisdom is senses and intuition. So like I said before, it's perception, but it's also insight. And insight is understanding other people. It's understanding motivation. It's understanding lying. It's understanding that kind of stuff. That's wisdom. And then finally, charisma. Because only a game made by nerds would make charisma a power. It's the spell casting. It's actually used by most of the spellcasters in this game. So bards, paladins, sorcerers, and warlocks all use this when they're casting spells. And then on top of that, it also obviously allows you to make like charisma checks and persuasion checks. But it also has a passive ability that when you're talking with yes, exactly, because he's a warlock. The kind of he's also very handsome, which makes him charismatic. But because he's a warlock, he in theory negotiated his pact with his patron, because each warlock makes a pact with a patron, and this enables them to have their power because they're not natural spellcasters. Okay, so we've looked at our stats. We'll look at our equipment next, and then we'll come back to armor class and all that kind of stuff, because they're tightly tied together. So let's look at our equipment. So we don't currently have a helmet, but this is our helmet slot. So these are all the slots for our currently equipped equipment. And so if you're ever wondering what you're wearing, this is where you come to look. Yeah. So as an example, we have these boots, which are these are just plain boots. If you notice, they don't have any text in the middle, so they're not giving me any bonuses. They just exist as basically a cosmetic item right now. Here's my armor, and as you notice, it has an armor class. And so what armor class is basically when someone's trying to hit me with a physical attack or with something like fireball or firebolt. It's scale, yeah, I know, right? Scale mail. But as a Dragonborn, they're gonna roll their d20. They're gonna add whatever their relevant bonus is, and they're trying to hit a 14. And if you notice, well, let's bring up the let's hit inspect. So this is gonna break down what my AC is. So my current armor class is 17. Why is that? So I get 14 from my armor. I get 1 from my dexterity bonus, because remember, I have a 12, which means it's 2 above 10, which means I have a +1. So I get 14 from my armor, I get +1 for my dexterity, and because I have a shield, that's an additional +2. So now I have 17 AC. Now, 17 at a low level, most enemies are adding like +3, +4 to their d20. So that's there's a very small range of numbers that they're going to be able to roll to meet or exceed my AC. So let's say, well actually, you know what, we'll break this down when we get into our first combat, because there's another feature I want to be able to show. What else is noticeable about this scale mail? So I have a disadvantage on stealth checks. So while I'm wearing this, I'm going to be bad at stealth checks. But I hear you out there. You might ask, what's disadvantage? Disadvantage makes you less likely to succeed. You roll 2 dice and use the lower value. It is bad. You want to avoid getting disadvantage on things as much as you can, because it's gonna it's gonna make everything a lot harder. Okay. Anything else? Well, let's take a look at my melee weapon. So this is the default weapon you get to start with, which is the Warhammer. Let's go inspect that weapon. Okay. Look at this. So, because I have proficiency with it, actually, let's talk about proficiency really quick. So proficiency is basically, you have a set list of stuff that you're good at. Those are your proficiencies. Anything you're proficient with, you get to add this little thing called a proficiency bonus to. It's a +2 currently, and it scales by your level. I believe it hits +3 at level 5, and then +4 at level 10. I'm not sure if it's every 5 levels or every 4 levels. I can't remember offhand, but that'll come up later. But basically, this is just a flat bonus you get on all the things you're good at. And so, because I'm a paladin, I'm well trained in weapons and armor. So I have a large list of things that I'm proficient with. Also, I'm apparently proficient with musical instruments. I don't know if that's as a weapon or as like I can play things, but I'll have to try that later because I kind of love that. Anyway, so this is a Warhammer. So let's go look at and see if we can find Warhammer in here. So yeah, so there we go. So I think this actually might be a glitch, because I don't think I'm actually proficient with musical instruments. I think Warhammer, see, if you notice, it's alphabetical. I think Warhammer is supposed to be on there, but it's not. Yeah, I think this is a glitch. I don't think I'm actually proficient. I think these have been replaced by musical instrument. The point being is I'm proficient with Warhammers, which means when we hit inspect, I get 3 special actions in combat. I get backbreaker, which allows me to knock my enemy prone, which means they fall on the ground and they have to use extra movement to get up. I get concussive smash, which applies a status effect to them and also makes them lose the dexterity bonus to their armor. So what that means is that if I hit them with this, and if they get hit by the debuff, this makes them easier to hit for all my party. So if I lead with this and I can custom smash them, then my party can have an easier time hitting them. And if you notice, let's dig in deeper. So you can see dazed. I apply daze to them, so they get a disadvantage on those actions. They can't take reactions, which is important because reactions are what allow people to hit you as you run away. Reactions are a special subclass of action. We'll get to that when we're talking about action in combat. Now, this requires an attack roll to hit, so similar to my normal attacks, I roll a d20, add 5, and if I hit it, if I match or exceed that target, I hit them. And then they have to try and... they basically roll to save. So it's a... it doesn't actually say what kind of check it is, but... they basically... it's probably a constitution check. They roll, and if they beat my roll, they become... if they beat my roll, they don't become dazed. If they fail that roll, they don't get the status effect. But the important thing I wanted to show here is that this recharges on a short rest. So every short rest, I get these 3 actions as a special, like, bonus ability. So I can use these actions as much as I want, as long as I'm playing a short rest afterwards. So these weapon actions, these weapon actions are really cool. These actually don't exist in 5th edition. This is something they added to make it a little more interesting for people who play melee classes. Okay. I think that's all we're going to talk about equipment for the moment. The last thing I'll say about your inventory is that, as usual... oh, hey, look, it's a scroll of Revivify. I wonder why I would bring this up. We're probably not going to have anyone die. If you notice, there's a little icon in the bottom left of all the stuff I have equipped. So, like, if you notice, if you're ever curious what you have equipped in your actual inventory, it has that little helmet icon in the bottom left. Okay, so we've talked a lot about equipment and stats and all that stuff, but how about just playing the game? So let's get into that. So, to revisit, so PS5, or console controllers, have an extra feature that's not available to PC. And that's if you hold down the X button, it will search the immediate area with this little pulse. And this is unbelievably useful, because this allows you to see every single item you can interact with in that area. So I see this brine bulb. What's a brine bulb? What's its deal? What's its story? It's not going to give me the thing. It's kind of annoying. Let's see if I can get it from here. Tell us your story. So it is resistant to piercing, resistant to necrotic, immune to psychic, immune to poison, and resistant to radiant. So, you know what? Let's just hit this thing and see what happens. Because a lot of this game is making bad decisions for the point of learning. Now, interestingly, when I hit it there, its light went off. Oh no! So, looks like when we shattered that brine bulb, it covered the ground in caustic brine. I'm gonna die. I actually need to move out of this. So, if we can see how there's a little tooltip above our icon there that says caustic brine. Anytime you want to, like, if you see a surface that has an odd color or texture, you can hover. See, there's fire here, some lovely caustic brine over here. And so, the thing is, so this is what's called a surface. there are certain substances in the game, so fire, water, acid, poison, ice, these kind of things, which can cover the ground and then change the terrain in some way. So, brine, as an example, seems to do acid damage. So, exactly. So I'm just going to do this quickly to, like... Oh, it's actually not going to let me. Huh, interesting. What do I have around? Okay, I'm just going to grab this chest real quick, and then we'll run. Because I do want the stuff out of here. Grab that delicious gold. Thank you, Cartagiligenous chest. Thank you for your service. So we're gonna use this little healing pod. If you notice, if I hover over it, it says restoration. So let's go touch that healing pod.
I feel better.
Now notice, not only did that heal me, but it recharged my frost breath, which means it's given me the benefit of a short rest. That doesn't really matter. That's only going to come up very rarely, but just kind of an interesting thing to note that when something says restoration specifically, it seems to be in-game code for it's going to give you a short rest as opposed to just healing. So let's touch this thing.
This is the pool that thing came from. The parasite now writhing behind your eye.
Anyone who remembers the Animorphs? How much does this remind you of a Yerk pool? So let's investigate that pool. So I have a -1, so Godspeed to me. So get used to this word very often, because oh boy is it going to come up. Also, to note, I am playing with karmic dice turned off, so my dice are entirely random. There is literally, like, karmic dice is a game system that slightly shifts. It basically, if you get a failure 3 times in a row, you start getting what's essentially a different number pool. Because this isn't actually rolling. Okay. The game isn't actually rolling dice. It's a random number generator, basically. So because of that, because it's not simulating a dice roll, it's just giving you a number generator. The way karmic dice works is that it instead of just randomly generating you 1 to 20, it'll take off 1 to 4. You'll no longer be able to roll 1 to 4 anymore. You'll only be able to roll 5 or higher, or whichever. I'm not sure the exact parameters of it, but that's basically how it works. And then once you succeed on a check, it then resets and gives you all the numbers again.
You notice nothing more than meets the eye.
Okay, well, let's make bad decisions. So, let's take a look at an important system here, which is the combat log. So let's say I wanted to find out what was going on around me, because I'm getting all these updates of like this chest is getting hit for damage from that caustic brine. This thing shot me, and so what we can do is we can sit down and we can actually look at the dice roll. So it had a 1d4 dice roll and it rolled a 2, so it rolled exactly the mid possible roll. And this applies to everything that happens in the game. Anything that shows up there on the right-hand side of your screen is going to show up in the combat log. So let's touch the sphincter. Gently ask it to open. And yeah, let's go make some friends. So again,
The feeling penetrates your mind. An anomaly, one like ourselves, unconnected from the whole. Caution.
Interesting. So this just by going up this rune slate and reading it, we now know that there's another one like us somewhere around here. Also, that chest is just having the worst time. So we're gonna take this with us to sell, because you can never not have. You can always have more money.
Worlds beyond worlds flash before your eyes. Empires of a
Well, so that's interesting to know. When you pick it up, it cuts off the dialogue. We're gonna fast forward a little bit through this because we want to get to other things, because I think we've gone through most of the stuff I wanted to address to start with. But again, let's use that pulse. Find this tablet, and from this menu, you can just hit the square button and do this. Delicious. Speaking of delicious, here's a dead goblin we can go look at.
We are trapped.
So apparently his corpse is worth $3, but I'm not going to take it with me. I'm just going to take the money off his corpse. Oh, so interestingly... okay, this is great. So, any container... you could, but here's the funny thing. Any container has the value of everything in that container. Because a corpse is technically a container, he had a value of $3. But that was only because he had $3 on his corpse. Now that he has no money on his corpse, if we inspect his body again, it's now worth 0. Because I took the $3 off of his corpse, because he counts as a container. However, we are going to take this one record that's going to come with us.
We are trapped.
So we're going to go over to this very nice little voice here. And for those of you who... I'm going to skip through this, because for those who haven't done this before, feel free to do this interaction, but it's a little goopy.
Yes, you've come to save us.
the exposed brain quivers in
Please. Before they
I'll let you
return.
know when it's done.
They return. A newborn. Born new from this husk.
you realize you're talking to an
So,
intellect
this is
devourer,
definitely one of those
a
choices.
minion of the mind flayers who abducted you.
In the kind of this is definitely a role-playing decision. As a paladin, because I know this is an intellect devourer, I need to kill it, because I know for a fact this is not a good creature. This is an evil creature. However, you can actually free him, and he becomes a little minion who comes around with you, which is very cool. It kind of introduces you to party fathers. So, nice wet crunch, and we're done. So we're gonna move on. Yes. Okay. Now before we go to meet our friend, I think that's it for now. Once we get our next... Haha, I don't have that counter.
Abomination. This is your end.
Your head throbs and your skin tingles. Visions rush past.
Thank you. Yeah,
A
the
dragon's
Dragonborn
wing, a
have
silver sword,
basically
and a flash of
illuminated
your face
eye colors,
seen
like
through
they
the
have
strange woman's
lighting
eyes.
behind them. It's very cool.
My head. What is this? Skvar. You are no thrall. Vlaakith blesses me this day. Together, we might survive.
Okay. What made you
We
think I was a
carry
thrall?
mind flayer parasites. Unless we escape, unless we are cleansed, our bodies and minds will be tainted and twisted. Within days, we will be
Also,
Geich, mind flayers.
Because this is a canonical run I wanted to do, I'm not going to be romancing Lae'zel on this playthrough. However, Dragonborn have a whole bunch of really interesting, unique dialogue with Lae'zel, so definitely, if you're playing a Dragonborn, and you're even moderately interested in Lae'zel, you get some really interesting dialogue.
Who am I? Your only chance of survival.
In the avenue of tips and tricks.
First, we exterminate.
Oop,
We will
we're gonna
address
skip
the
the
matter of a cure
goopy
for this
noises.
infection once we reach the material.
Also, initiative minus 17, so that's kind of interesting, because that tells you, will it tell us in the combat log? No. So that's interesting, because that tells you that these are programmed to go after you on purpose. So if we...
That's a friendly-looking shadow.
Not sure why it's doing that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so their initiative is minus 21 because they're purposely trying to make it so it's impossible for the imps to go before you. That's kind of a neat, that's a cool detail to find out in terms of game design, because it's your first encounter in the game. So let's take this moment to take a look at this enemy and kind of get an idea what they're about. So this is an imp. It's got AC 7. So when I'm rolling my attack roll, I'm going to have to roll 7 or higher to hit this enemy. It's got dark vision, so it can see in the dark. So if I'm trying to like hide or whatever, I'll have to be careful of the fact that it has dark vision, because if I'm hiding in darkness, it's still going to see me normally. It's got Devil's Sight, so it can see normally in darkness, both in magical and non-magical. And it's also got an opportunity attack. And as you can see that little star that says reaction, so this is an ability it can use once per turn. It can have a reaction from any of its reaction abilities. Its reaction ability is opportunity attack. It's got It's got 0 movement speed, which in theory means it can't move at all. We're actually gonna do a little science with this because I want to see if it just can't move. Because it looks like this encounter is set up on training wheels, basically. Oh, also, very importantly, if you notice how below the... So this is... Up here at the top is the initiative tracker. I can't point to it. Can I actually just move my mouse? I can't. Up at the top, the little portraits are your initiative tracker. It tells you who's going where, who's going at what point, and whose turn it is. So, like, if I wanted to switch characters,
Victory awaits.
see how that white portrait switches back and forth? The white portrait is the person that I'm on currently. So if I switch over to
Time
Lae'zel,
to strike.
let's see if this person also has it.
Time to push my luck again.
So do you also have 0? Yeah, they also have... let's just end the turn. I want to see if they can move or not.
Time to strike.
Huh, interesting. So on that first turn, they're coded to have 0 movement and 0 initiative, basically. That's really interesting. So that's to make sure that, like, no matter what, a new player can start off and just kind of... Because now, they still have minus 21. Interesting. Huh. Anyway, so we're going to hit them. As you can see, we have our main hand attack. It has 95% chance to hit. It's going to do 4 to 11 damage. And it has 6 HP. So as long as I roll my damage roll, actually, let's talk about damage rolls. So this weapon, it has it uses either a D8 or a D10 damage dice. So because I'm wielding it in one hand, it's a D8. If I was wielding it with both hands, it's a D10. So it gets significantly more damage, but I lose the opportunity to use a shield because I'm wielding with both hands. So let's hit the inspect button. Let's blow it up. Let's look at that inspect button. So versatile. Versatile weapons can be used with one or both hands. Deals more damage when it wields with both hands. So it uses the D8 when I'm using one hand, and the D10 when I'm using two. And because it uses strength to do damage, I get a +3, which is my strength bonus, if you'll remember. So I do 1d8 plus 3, and that equals to 4 to 11 damage. So the damage that you're seeing there is basically they've just taken the roll and they've abstracted it into the range. So you can have a rough idea what you're going to hit. So let's hit this person and see what happens. So there we go. So let's go and take a close look at the combat log. So I hit this guy for 11 damage. And so my attack roll was 5, +2 for my proficiency, +3 for my strength, to equal 10. So I rolled a 5, added my bonuses, I got 10, which means I hit, so then I get to roll my damage. In this case, it was a 1d8. And I rolled 8 from my... I rolled maximum. I got the best possible roll here, and just killed him instantly. So that was a pretty good turn. So now, let's pop open our menu. What are my other options that I can do with my bonus action? So all of these nice little orange icons are ones available. So if I want to, I could take a potion. I only have 1 HP damage. I don't think it's really worth it right here. So instead, we're just gonna walk over here, and yeah, we're just gonna walk over here, and we're gonna plant our feet in front of this guy,
Swift as my feet can carry me.
and just kind of make it so it's harder for him to get other places. Because if you notice, they have a little circle around them, which is their threatened area. Now the threatened area, everyone has a threatened area, and basically if an enemy leaves your threatened area, so if they come into the threatened zone and then leave, you get the opportunity attack action. So if I put myself against them, I can put them in threatened, so their ranged attacks are worse, but also if they try and run away, I can just bap them. I get a free chance to just go pop. So that's my turn for Unpalatable.
Fury, I am death.
So now let's switch over to LEAAAARN. You are you like to run in and be the melee wizard, and there are ways to safely do that, but not yet. So we're gonna grab this nice little hand axe. Grab all this stuff. And all I'm doing is hitting X to bring up the thing, and then hitting... Oh, also, if you ever want to compare your inventory to the container you're looking at, just hit R1, and it'll bring them up side by side, in case you want to transfer things back and up. But yeah, just hit triangle to loot all things. And we're going to bring up LEAAAARN so that she's right beside me. That's her. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the combat log again. So he missed me here. Now if you notice, when he used his attack roll, he's rolling at disadvantage. See, it says 1d20 disadvantage. So he rolled 2 dice, and he had to take the lower of those 2 dice. So, by standing... When someone makes a ranged attack, if someone is standing right beside them, they have to roll a disadvantage. So it's a nice little trick to make ranged fighters worse. So, nice clean fight. Only took 1 damage.
Surprisingly adequate in battle.
Now, if you
Now,
notice,
to the hell.
under my ranged thing here, I don't have anything equipped currently. So let's go ahead and equip that light crossbow that I just found, because that's a nice little D8 weapon. And we're gonna make sure. Oh, actually, let's do the things that we learned. Let's use the search pulse. What do we got here? We got an imp. He's got a crossbow we can take. There's a thrall over here. He's got a potion we can take. We can take that too. And let's wander around. We're not in a hurry. Nothing here. Take a look at these. Yep, he's empty. We've searched him already. He's empty. We've searched that already. But let's just take a little look around the environment. Anything else I can interact with? Anything interesting? There's a tentacle aquarium. If I inspect that, though, there's no kind of... It doesn't tell me anything about it, so it's just an object. It's just kind of a thing in the environment to give it some brains. Brains. Ooh, another body. So yeah, anytime you're in an environment, it's always good to be clicking on the right stick to make sure we're looking for that. But we can also just, if we're ever kind of curious, loot that body indeed. You'll have to show me how to set up the sound alerts, because it's a lot of fun for sure.
Won't be able to take another dragon attack.
So we're just
Need
looting
to get
here.
out before it's too late.
We're gonna grab a nice little restoration. Now, if you just hold on 1 second, I'm just gonna need to pause the stream for a second, and I will be right back. Alright, and I'm back. So, we're gonna continue on our little, oop, let me, what's that? There we go. Continue on our little journey here. I'm back! I'm see you stand by. Now, here's a fun thing, is that this game has a lot of, like, hidden paths and stuff like that, so it is always good to check whether or not you can jump somewhere. So, like, if we just hit the up arrow on our controller, it activates jump mode. And as you can see, nope, we're not allowed to go here. It says invalid target, so we have nowhere, path is interrupted. This is an invisible wall. This is a lie. So instead, we're gonna keep heading towards this way.
Machinery. I can make no sense of it.
So let's do a little exploring in the area. Let's do our search pulse. So there's 3 buttons here, but there's also some sigils here. So let's explore that. Let's see what this says. Oh, interesting. So by interacting with the object, we actually rolled. You saw a little dice there. You can hear that dice noise, and we succeeded our roll. So now we know this says aggression. Let's see what this one says. Unfortunately, I failed that one. So let's try the 3rd one. I also failed that one. I probably got. Let's actually. I probably got pretty lucky on that one roll because my Arcana is not a good stat. So let's take a look at my combat roll here. In a second. So yeah, I just randomly. So this difficulty class was 15, and I just randomly rolled an 18. So I got lucky on that roll. That's great. I rolled an 18 minus 1, and I got a 17. So we can switch characters and try that again. So let's see how Lae'zel does with these checks. Aha! So she was able to succeed, and now we know this means unleash. What does this mean? So we still can't do that one, but we hear the siren call of another character available to be recruited. So we'll go with that in a second. But first things first.
No time to rest.
Okay, class. Let's remember what is D&D? It's dice rolls and bad decisions. That's right. So, in the spirit of bad decisions, we're pressing the aggression button. Oh no, they've attacked us. Whoever could have seen this coming? It's me. I saw it coming because I decided to do this. So the reason I decided to do this as part of the... So this series has 2 kind of points. One, I wanted to go through and kind of like do a very basic breakdown of the game and let people have an entry into the series. 2, you nailed it right there. This, if you do all the possible things in the opening scenario, you can start the beach at level 2, which makes a huge difference. in terms of the first couple fights. Being at level 2. Oh yeah, so the thing is, you can just kill them automatically with the, I think it's like Annihilate or something. You can just kill them immediately. But that's actually not very useful. It's actually a lot better to...
Another step forward.
It is a lot better to just hit the aggression button and allow them to attack you, because the amount of damage they're going to do is very minimal. Like, there's a healing pod literally right there. And this is just extra XP. So just for the sake of it, let's try using some of our weapon abilities. So let's try back. So if this hits, it should put them on their back. Although it's probably just gonna kill them. There you go. And now I actually made a small mistake here, and this is an important one to point out. Because I know what order the enemies are attacking in, because I knew last, if you look at the top there, the guy who just went, he was also in combat with me. I could have just attacked him directly and stopped him from going next, which would mean LEAAAARN will get her turn before the other guy. So it's important to keep an eye on the initiative order, and if you can kill someone before their turn starts, you're always going to get advantage from that. So yeah. So there's something going on here. So let's do a pulse scan and investigate.
Damn it! You! Get me out of this damn thing!
We have no time for stragglers.
That is my wife, ma'am. You are not going to stop me from saving her.
The construction is too alien. Nothing looks familiar.
This ship is crashing. Do you intend to die for a stranger?
Try that contraption next to the pod. They did something to it when they sealed me in. Hurry! Please!
So there's some more brine bulbs here. These nautiloid tanks so these nautiloid tanks have an action. What could that be? So let's go pick it up. So if we go into our inventory,
Some kind of tank.
oh look, so we can now throw this tank. We can use this object and throw the tank. Let's see what that does. Oh, so look, it exploded and left a mysterious liquid. Oh! Okay, so this is cool. So I hovered, let's see, can we do that on any service? Well, we're gonna do some science. So if you hit, see how it says examine in the bottom left hand, right hand corner? Hold on just one second, I'll be right back again. All right, and I'm back. Sorry for the wait. So yeah, so we can if there's a surface, we can hit the examine button, which is down on your D-pad, and that'll let us learn about what this mysterious liquid is. So it says this vivid briny fluid reacts to any heat that comes near it. So that tells me it's likely has some kind of interaction with fire. Now we don't have any. We'll get there. I don't have anything to immediately. I don't have any fire spells on these two characters, so we'll get there. I promise. Actually, hello. Since we're here, oh look. So if you notice, right under its HP bar, it has a condition on it. Let's find out what that condition does. So it is a condition called newborn. So it's gathering its bearings. So it is a baby. So you did murder a baby. So it's gathering its bearings. It has disadvantage on arm rolls, lowered armor class, and hit points, and cannot take reactions. So let's review. What's the most common reaction? What's the thing that happens to you an unpleasant amount of times? Yeah. The opportunity attacks is generally how they're referred to. So when you run, what happens is that their reaction triggers because you've left their threatened area, and that they get an opportunity attack. So let's do a scan pulse. Oop, there's a thrall here. Ooh, they have a key. Let's take that with us. Also, you know what? Let's customize our Lizzie a little bit. Let's take a look at her character sheet. What's her proficiencies? What kind of weapons can she use? Because this longsword, fantastic weapon, great longsword. But what are other options? What could we give her? Oh yeah, that's definitely bugged. Oh, interesting. So she can use scimitars, which we just so happened to have picked up recently. So instead of having one longsword, we're gonna give her 2 scimitars. Look how cool that looks. Look how rad that is. And so these scimitars dual wield. Oh yeah. So let's take a look at these scimitars. What's the scimitar got? So this scimitar has, oh look, it's got a bonus action attack. It's got a damaging attack. You can use it with your bonus actions. So that means she can attack with her normal, like, full action and still be able to do more damage. It also has lacerate. So you can slash at someone, make them bleed. What does bleed mean? Precious. Bleeding's a condition. Bleeding does 2 slashing damage at the start of their turn, and they have a disadvantage on Constitution saving throws. Now, you might be asking yourself, what requires you to make a Constitution saving throw? I'll tell you, poisons. So if someone's bleeding, and you have a poisonous weapon, which we'll get to later, the bleeding is going to make them more often be poisoned, which makes sense, because if their skin's been, like, slashed, the poison gets in easier. So yeah, so we're gonna have a little dual wield. Also, look how big those scimitars are. Like, anyway, there's a bunch of like interactions and combos, which, when you understand what the stats are for and how they work, allows you to make cool little synergies and combos. Okay, so let's do a little scan pulse. So. Got another button. Let's find out, what's the sigil say? Ah, dang. So I failed that. We'll try it with Lazael in a second.
But for what?
So we'll loot the room. Huh. A humanoid brain, alive and in perfect condition, suspended in fluid. Interesting. I wonder what that's for. I wonder if that,
Jar.
something that's really fun about this game is that there's often items that just seem like random lore objects, but sometimes down the road they have interesting little interactions. So this game definitely pays you, it definitely gives you the opportunity to be a pack rat and find usages for a lot of random pack rat things. It's fun. I actually really appreciate it.
Oh, enough waiting.
Let's see if
Crazy
Lae'zel can
blood.
figure out what this button does.
Perfect.
So, the word perfect as a verb
I've got a long road
has
ahead.
really uncomfortable connotations, especially when you're in this very fleshy looking ship. So we're going to leave that one alone, and we're going to head back out to the main room. So first things first, we're going to go free Shadowheart.
The console appears dormant.
So kind of fun.
The console hums
If
to
you're
life.
a sorcerer, warlock, if you're any of the arcane classes, so sorcerer, warlock, wizard, they get a special check on the pod itself where they can see the magical connection between this and the pod, and so they don't even need to find that rune. I'm not good at magic.
Nothing in the appearance of the device betrays its purpose. It could do anything. Suddenly, you feel a hideous discomfort fades, and another sensation
So
washes over
let's
you.
talk about
Connection.
roles and flags.
Authority.
So if you ever want to know what your role is going to be, you just hit the R3 button, and we get you'll get a little pop-up which will tell you what your roll is for this. So because I have a +0 in wisdom, it's just a flat d20 roll, no bonuses, no negatives. However, there's another tag on this roll. So if we go back, this has an illithid tag. Being implanted with a Mind Flayer tadpole is fate worse than death, isn't it? Interesting. So the difficulty class of this roll is 2, which is ludicrously low, incredibly low. Why is it so low? It's almost as if the story wants it to happen.
You feel the biomechanical brain of the console process. A shiver runs across your mind. Sated.
Yeah. So, as a quick tip, again, in the tips and tricks, illithid checks are generally very low and are kind of a skeleton key for a situation. And we'll get into this more later as we have more of them. But they're a way to continue the story, but they draw on the power of the brain parasite. So depending on how you want to roleplay things and how you want situations to resolve, remember that the choices you're making with illithid rolls might not be as much your character as what the brain wants. So balance that in your mind and remember that you're sharing your head with a passenger. Hello, Shadowheart. My beauteous friend. And hopefully
Thought
consort.
that damn thing was going to be my coffin. Thank you.
Your mind lurched.
You keep dangerous company. Fair point. Let me come with you. We can get Shadowheart.
Finally.
She's right.
So it doesn't tell you in so many words. It actually does tell you if you manage to get your relationship with someone below a certain amount, they will actually
Things
like
will be done.
they will actually give you like a breakdown of what they like or don't like in terms of conversation. It's actually quite funny because they'll straight up just say, "Oh, you want to improve your relationship with me? Here's how." I'm trying to see where it is on PS5. Oh, also, as a side note, there's a tutorials in here. Some of these are... Okay, that's weird. It has a spoiler in there. We're gonna close that real quick, because I realized there's a spoiler in that tutorials somehow. That's so weird. Does it unlock bit by bit?
Is that blood?
So we'll get to it in a second. We're gonna walk away really quickly because I don't want to be near it when this happens. But okay, good. So remember remember it said it reacted to heat. Let's see what happens if we fire a firebolt. Well, there you go. That was an explosive reaction. Also, if you notice, we can look and see that fire is a surface that deals 1d4 damage return, and now it's turned to ash. So, the more you know. So anytime you see something on the ground, there we go. We've just learned another thing. So blood douses unprotected flames, and it can be frozen. So if I use, so as an example, if I use my frost breath, I can freeze this blood into ice, which then becomes difficult terrain, which can make people fall prone. And then it melts to turn into water, which douses unprotected flames and can be electrified or frozen. So if I had some kind of electrical ability, I could then electrify that water and possibly hurt an enemy. Yes. Oh man, I figured out, I kind of like intuit it. So like talking about game design and kind of like stuff you're used to, when I saw those purple, oh, also, this is just a personal thing, but this is something I like to do.
Of darkness.
So chests have a couple uses. Chests have a couple uses, but one, they sometimes will be worth enough to sell, but you can send them to your camp and use them as sub-containers. So you send this to your main camp chest. We'll go over this later when we get to the camp. But you send this to your main camp chest, and then you use it as a subfolder for your camp chest. So you can separate out your equipment and all the various stuff that you find along your adventure. Because the thing is that these kind of objects have, as far as I know, no functional maximum size. So you can just keep jamming junk in them. But it just saves you the trouble of having to constantly like sort and find a specific thing. So we'll get to that later. That's just kind of an optimization thing. Sorry, I took some water there. Okay. Let's gently ask the sphincter open. So now let's talk about let's open up our action bar and let's talk. But before we go into the final room, which as we all know is a mini boss fight, let's open up our action bar. Talk about our radial a little bit for a second. So our radial is pretty full at the moment, as you can see. But if you ever want to change what weapons or what abilities are available here, if you highlight a empty thing and hit square, you'll see we get a whole bunch of options here. Now we can add a whole other radial here. So like I could add a whole other blank wheel, but I don't need to do that right now. Completely honestly, depending on how much time you want to invest into this game, it really behooves you to create your own radials that are completely custom. So like you would go through and you go like set slot, here's my basic attack, here's my, I really like using my breath weapon, here's my breath weapon, I want my 3 weapon abilities. You know what, we'll just quickly go through and just kind of demonstrate how this works. There's all my ranged, here's all my melee stuff on this side. On this side, we'll do my ranged stuff. So there's my regular attack, here's my piercing attack. And now here, the game doesn't teach you this, and it really, well, okay, it teaches you by example, but it never explicitly calls it out. Throwing things, this is how you do throw attacks, is this throw action. And holy Mackinaw, is it powerful. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to throw things that's really strong. So what else am I want to do in a normal turn? So here's all my attacks that I like to use. What other kind of like day-to-day stuff am I gonna want? Let's take a look. Let's look at my slots. Divine Sense, I'm not usually going to use this. This is only good against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead, which are very specific enemy types. Well, when we get into the next room, we'll talk about enemy types, because it does come up a non-zero amount of times. It's good to know that they exist and kind of what is what they need. So Lay on Hands is my big heal as a paladin. I get it. It's quite a strong ability, and it allows me to do a good amount of heals. But I don't need it I'm only going to be using it when I want to, so I'm going to leave it elsewhere. So let's set the slot. What else do I want? So Jump is an example of something that, because it has its own dedicated button, I don't even need this on my button. This is actually just kind of a waste of space, because I can just hit up and use the jump action. So we're going to ignore that. We don't really need that. Now, are there any items I'm going to use from time to time? You know, healing potions is probably pretty useful. There's a lot of turns I'm going to use healing potions. So we're going to put that down there. Pushing's pretty useful. We're going to put that there. Running's pretty useful. And then disengage. So as you can see now I have my own little custom wheel here, and this is the one annoying thing, is that when it pops up, it's usually going to pop up to the farthest left wheel. So what I'm going to do now is going to remove this radial. So this is the farthest left wheel, and now it should always pop up to this wheel. So there you go. So now it's popping up to my customized wheel. So this has all the actions I'm going to do in a normal turn, and then what I can do is I can add in the abilities that I took off that last wheel. I mean, not entirely true. Like there's yeah, like, it's a little bit of a pain because it takes a while to set up, but it's gonna improve your, enjoyment of the game pretty substantially. And especially if you only have one save file that you're actively using most of the time. Oh, also, as a side note, the quote-unquote help action, it's another slot that you don't even need to have, because if someone is in the situation where they need help, if you hover your reticule over the person, it'll automatically switch to the help action. So you don't really ever need to have it there. In theory, you don't need hide as well, because you can just hold the down button, but it's not terrible to have it for characters who, like rogues, as an example. We'll get into different custom, because each class is going to have a slightly different customized setup. Unless you're really, really wanting to streamline, you don't have to do it for your, like, secondary characters, but I definitely recommend doing it for your primary character. The reason I wanted to do this, though, was I wanted to do a quick thing to talk about surfaces. So, remember how we had the brine surface, and the blood, and the ice, and the mysterious liquid? For some reason, you can't dip in those, but fire, as a surface, you can dip into. And what does that do? So let's take a look at our... Actually, we're going to re-dip this, and then we're going to go into time stop. We've dipped it in fire, and now we're going to go into turn-based mode. Now, why do I want to go into turn-based mode? Because I now have a temporary effect on my weapon. So if you notice, I now have 3 turns left of dipped in fire as a status condition. What's dipped in fire, precious? So dipped in fire is a condition, so my weapon deals additional fire damage. Now in this case, you can see on the weapon itself, it's an extra 1d4. Because of the way the game works, and because a dice... the way the game works is that every time you get a new source of damage, whether it's from adding a bonus to your weapon or whatever, the more dice you're rolling, the more minimum damage you're getting. So if you notice, we just went from 4 to 11 to 5 to 15. So if every additional new source of damage is going to significantly increase your DPS overall. So the more kind of extra little things you can tag on, the more you're going to be able to kind of like increase damage. And that also gets multiplied by how many attacks you have in a turn. So as an example, before we go into this next fight, I'm going to dip everyone's weapons in fire. So when I attack with my Warhammer, I hit them once, and I do that much damage. However, oops, sorry. If I switch over to the second,
Enough waiting. I crave blood.
and I dip her weapons,
A wise strategy.
so it's not showing the visual effect for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But if we look at the stats of her weapons, you'll notice that both of them now have that 1d4 fire. Now the thing about dual weaponry, if you're dual wielding, quote unquote, you automatically get a second attack called your offhand melee attack, which is a bonus action. And now by default, unless you turn this off, which we're actually going to do for a specific reason we'll talk about later. Sorry, I know how to do this on PC, but it's going to take me a second to figure it out. This. Okay, we'll figure it out in a minute. It's not that big deal. Anyway, exactly. Because you have, in one turn, you're going to get attacked with both weapons. So you're adding an extra 1d4 with both weapons. So everything that gives you a bonus weapon, or a bonus damage, or a bonus dice specifically, I think that specifically adds an extra dice roll onto your weapons. If you have two weapons, you're getting twice the effect. Obviously, it sounds pretty obvious. It is pretty obvious. But it's just, these are just little tiny things you can do to like improve your damage in fights. Is look for stuff like fire to dip your, and I'll show you kind of not a cheat per se, but kind of an exploit that allows you to have fire at the tops. So now, so we don't lose the, because the thing is the buff only lasts for 3 turns. So in order to try and avoid losing that buff, I'm gonna stay in time-based mode. I'm gonna use dash. I'm gonna run over to this door and open it, because that'll trigger the cutscene that'll take us into the next area without time advancing. Although, actually, sorry, let me rewind, because I want to, this is another thing I wanted to show.
This thing's falling fast. Got the right.
Quick load. We'll see if this loads. We'll see this where this loads us back to, because there's a specific place I want to go to. Because it should have saved just before we go in that door. If I remember correctly. Sure did. Okay, awesome. So, here's a fun little thing you can do
Can't afford to stay idle.
in this next fight. So, if we go into our spellbook, we're going to take away Shield of Faith because we're not too worried about this. And we're going to take the most ridiculously broken spell at this level, Command. And you're going to hear me talk about Command a lot in this series because Command is hilarious. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. So, let's talk about, we'll do a quick kind of thing about, here's your spellbook. These are all the spells that you know. Okay, that's actually what that is. Alright, here's your spellbook. Here's all the things that you know. If you want to change what spells you want to have accessible to you, you're going to hit the square button. And then, see how it has the little check mark? You're going to go up here, you're going to unprepare a spell, and then come down here and prepare a spell. Pretty basic, pretty easy. Can be a little complicated or a little confusing to go through, but also, this screen also has some information. So as an example, clerics use Wisdom as their casting ability. Her spell save DC, so spell save DC, there are two types of spells. There's a attack roll spell, and there's a spell save spell. So Command, as an example, is something that requires a spell save. So you cast the spell, and then instead of rolling to hit, the other person has to roll to defend against the spell. And if they fail that save, in this case if they roll less than a 13, the effect happens like that, and it does whatever you want it to do. So we're going to pop a save here. She's also a +5 to hit her spell attacks. Now I'm just going to switch to see.
Action, not reaction.
So we're gonna pop a save quickly. Do a nice little quick save here. And then we're gonna hop over to our wonderful paladin. And we're gonna have him open that door.
In it.
And we're gonna do some shenanigans here. And to be clear, I'm kind of doing this in as optimal a way as possible. You don't need to take the ridiculous amount of meticulousness that I'm trying to do. Because 9 times out of 10 it's not necessary. But I just want to show everyone the kind of like very
Connect the nerves of the
precise ways to
We must escape.
play the game to get more value out of every encounter. Because the thing is, this game has so much value. Every single time you have an interaction,
Got to
you
right
can get something out of it. Okay, so let's move Shadowheart up.
Time to strike.
LEAAAARN is, for some reason, way the heck back here, so we're gonna fix that. Okay, so here's kind of a hilarious thing. Let's take a look at jump for a second. I think it's probably more statistics. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. I could probably find it. There's a hilarious interaction in the fact that jumping is technically a different math than movement. So if you notice, we have a movement speed of 9 meters here. So that's how far you can move in a turn. If you want to jump, it costs you a flat amount of 3 meters of movement to do that. However, can we see a breakdown of this? Yeah. Here's the thing. Because of the way the math on the jump action works, LEAAAARN can jump 8 meters. So you spend 3 meters to travel 8 meters. So if you use jump correctly, you can actually move farther in one turn than you could move by running or by like using your normal movement. So what you want to do, if you move, see, if you look at the little bar there, as I move the cursor around, it's using up, it'll tell me how much movement I'm using to get to that square, let's call it. Because this is a result of how 5th edition tracks movement. You basically get a bar worth of, look at that little yellow bar at the bottom of the screen. You can see it moving as I'm like moving in and out. That's telling us how much movement we're using. So if I was just to walk, I could get to here. That's the edge of, that's the end of my movement. If I jump, I can get to there. Jumping, because jumping is based on math and not based on movement, you can do a lot of little weird hacks like this where you can move just a little bit. Any character whose strength is above 16, or no, any character whose strength is above 14 can jump. If you move and jump, it's always farther than just move. So if you're ever trying to catch them up to the party, like we're trying to do,
In my best interest.
while weird looking, this is technically the most optimal way of doing it. So unfortunately she's still kind of out of range, so we're gonna have her dash, which means she can't attack this turn, but she gets another full use of her movement.
My path be true.
So we have arrived here. Huzzah. Okay, so we've arrived at a very complex looking battlefield. So let's take a look at some of these enemies. So we have a lesser Hellsboar. He's got a strict. So stats tell you a lot of things. Specifically, when you have an ability, let's specifically do this for Shadowheart because that's kind of
I'm ready.
this. When you have an ability like Command, let's do our favorite thing. Let's open up the inspect on the spell. So if you notice, it has a thing called the spell itself uses it requires the opponent to make a save. So the target needs to roll against this caster's spell difficulty class. If the roll is equal or higher than the difficulty class, they resist the spell. So in this case, it's 13. So the enemy has to roll a 13 to resist our spell. So let's take a look at the enemies around here. For no particular reason, let's look at Commander Zelk. Commander Zelk has a 12, which means he only has a +1 on his roll. So when he's rolling, he rolls the d20 and adds only 1 when he's trying to resist our command. That's going to come in useful later. So Shadowheart's actually pretty competent in melee combat, so I feel an 85 is a pretty good roll here. So let's go ahead and try and hit him. There we go. And now if you notice, see how there's 2 numbers on our screen there? Let's open up the combat log. So when we were rolling for damage, we got to roll 2 dice. We got to roll the 1d6 for the bludgeoning roll and the 1d4 for our fire damage. So we just got an extra, because, see, actually, we wouldn't have killed that imp without the extra fire damage. And that shows you kind of, like, because it gave us just that much more, it went from doing 4 damage to doing 6 damage and killing the imp in 1 round. So that's really nice. Okay, no bonus actions we really care about for the moment, so we're just gonna end her turn.
Victory awaits.
Lae'zel unfortunately had to spend her turn running up, so she's just gonna do nothing.
Can't even catch my breath.
And then we're just gonna wander over and give this guy
Fall by my hand.
nice little block there. Now, we learned from before that if this catches fire, it's gonna go boom. So, in theory, if we wanted to, we could throw this at the enemy and make it go boom and probably cause them some more damage. We're not going to do that right now, but that might be something we do in future turns. It's good to look around your environment and see things like this tank. Like, there's lots of things in the environment you can use to affect enemies. So before we end our turn, we're going to look at these bodies, see if we can get anything out of them. Actually, good opportunity to show this.
Focus.
If you ever end the turn, but realize, oh no, you know what? I could probably check these bodies around. You can use the L2 to open the menu, go back to that character, and then hit triangle to cancel end turn. So now we have control of them again. So now let's check. There's a thrall behind me. There's an imp here. Alright, look at all this nice loot we almost missed. Okay.
Still on my feet.
Yeah, and now, if you see how my 3 portraits are kind of like braided together there at the top, you can only go back to someone's turn if they're all braided together. Because what this is called, I think it's like simultaneous turn or blended turn. This is something that's only exists in the game. Is that because all of our turns are happening at this one after another, they've merged them all together to happen simultaneously. So technically they're all moving at the same time as opposed to one after another. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for this turn. I don't think that we're good for this turn. We're gonna move on with our lives. Actually, again, so here's a perfect example. So, not perfect, but like I can get so far with my jump action if I do this, which I'm actually gonna do because for a reason you're about to see. So, I'm gonna use the jump hack to get just that much farther. So we're nice up and beside these folks, and we're gonna pass the turn. Oh yeah. So because I'm trying to show something in particular, I'm gonna quick save here, just in case this doesn't work. Because there's a decent chance it will, but there's a potential it won't. So we're gonna move Shadow Heart up as far as we can, and we're gonna use our old friend Command. Command has 5 modes. It has 5 different actions you can use. The first one is approach. So you can command something to walk towards you and do nothing else. So it can't attack, can't use spells, can't do anything else whatsoever. All it can do is walk towards you and then stop. So this is really great if like you're chasing someone, or if maybe there's like an enemy, there's one enemy in particular you want to come towards you, or if you want to get a whole bunch of free attacks on that enemy, you can force it to come towards you and force it to leave the threatened area of other creatures, and they get an attack of opportunity on it. So there's a lot of ways to use approach. This is the one, we'll come back to this because this is what we're going to use. Halt commands it to just stop and do nothing. So at minimum, this literally just makes them skip their turn. They just stand there and do nothing. You can, so like, in the game, both in D&D as a whole, but specifically in Baldur's Gate, there's a concept of what's called action economy, which means basically how many actions you take and how many actions the enemy takes, and how you can exchange how your actions affect their actions, and basically how many actions you're using versus how many actions they're using. If you use one action out of all your party to stop them from having a turn, that's a huge thing. That's an enormous thing. You can functionally just turn off their turn. Like, if it's a powerful enemy that has like lots of spells, you can just take away their whole turn, which you can imagine is very, very strong. Grovel's pretty good. It allows you to force them to become prone, and let's inspect that. So when someone is prone, they can't move or take actions, bonus actions or reactions, and has disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws. So what that means functionally, is that if someone is prone, they can't do anything till they stand up. Oh yeah, no, grovel is insane. They have to spend extra movement to stand up, so they're gonna have a harder time moving anywhere. They're gonna lose all their actions if they can't stand up, and also, if you have a spell that requires a dexterity saving throw, they're gonna do really badly on that dexterity saving throw. There's a bunch of different, like, again, knowing what causes disadvantage for saving throws can tell you combos you can build to make spells better. Flee is just the reverse of approach, but it's still very tactically strong, as you can imagine. But let's talk about drop. So this is a coin flip. This is a 55% chance of working. If it fails 2 times, we're going to roll back, because we want this to succeed, because we're trying to achieve something here. But if we use this on him, worked first time, AO, he has now dropped his Everburn Blade. So let's take a look at this friendly friend. So this is a greatsword that does 4 to 17 damage. So we talked before about adding extra damage. This is the equivalent. This is a magical weapon. It has a unique name, and it has a property that's different. Like, if you compare this, we'll actually pick this. We're gonna pick it up anyway. But I'm gonna switch to the reason I moved my character
so much
close
for
was that
peace.
I could do yoink. Whoop, 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 whoop. So we're gonna take this and run away. This is mine now.
Hurry, before they strike.
You're one to talk. You haven't done anything yet. So poor Lae'zel is like way behind here. We're gonna try and get her up to do combat. I don't know if she's gonna get a chance. So we're gonna run her up. We're gonna jump her, and she's actually in range to do a ranged attack. So we'll get her doing her ranged attack. Ah, see, let's look at that combat log. So here you go. This is dice. This is why I will jokingly say in my series, you want to roll as few dice as possible. I had an 85% chance of hitting. I rolled a 2. So it's gonna happen once in a while. You're just gonna miss. There's nothing you can do about it. So go.
Talk to me.
But that's fine, because ultimately this imp isn't particularly doing a whole lot. So we got the thing we cared about. We got his Everburn Blade, and now we're just gonna try and finish this cutscene. Now, again, talking to the folks who are trying to learn neat tips and tricks about this game, there's actually an achievement for killing Commander Zulk before you finish this. There's actually an achievement for killing him before the 14 turns ends. It's pretty easy to do. It's not too terrible to do. You definitely want to... stealing his sword is a huge start to it, because stealing his sword, A, means you can use it against him, and it's got a pretty good damage on it. And B, you want to use more spells than anything else, because if you notice, he has resistance to a lot of non-magical damage. So, like, you want to use radiant damage against him, you want to use force damage, thunder damage. You can throw these, you can get these brine bulbs. They're hanging from the ceiling. If you can position him under one of them, you can blow it up and drop the acid on him, and it'll eat away at him every turn. There's a couple of different ways you can make it happen. You can throw these containers at him and explode them. It's not too terrible. It takes a little while to do. You do have to be careful, because eventually there's going to be 2 Cambions who spawn in from over here. There's a couple ways to prevent them from getting inside. You can actually take one of these, there's chests, if you take one of those cartilaginous chests, you can put it right here across the door. You can block them from getting in. There's a couple other ways to deal with it that way, but generally, if you've done the achievement or you just want to get through the opening scenario quickly, all you need to do is get Shadowheart to use command so you can get the sword, and then
Never a
from
dull
there
moment.
they'll just ignore you. You can just leave. The one other thing that I want to point out in this area, there are a bunch of these objects. There's caustic bulbs and there's void orbs, and they're not great, they're not amazing, but they're pretty useful. They're just a little throwing weapon, and they do a relatively low amount of damage, but it can be useful to just have one damage, and that'll come up later in this series. Like in Act 1, it'll come up more than once, that just having a single damage we can inflict to someone can be very useful. So, anyway, we're gonna take our turn. Oh, another thing. When you're targeting an attack, especially a ranged attack, a ranged or spell attack, less so a melee attack, you can use your left, specifically when you have this ranged attack like reticule up, you can hit left and right on your D-pad to cycle through the available targets. And this is really nice when the battlefield is a little confusing, because it allows you to just kind of cycle through the targets, see what the chances of hitting are, and can also help you find targets if they're in a weird position or the camera doesn't want to, work with you, which can be a serious issue on the controller sometimes. So, nice little damage there. That's in
To me. Connected to the spawn.
Also, as a secondary side note, if you manage to kill Commander Zyke,
We must take the transponder.
the Mind Flayer will turn against you and try and kill you. So if you're trying to kill Zyke, do just be aware that he's gonna then betray you and try and kill you.
Time to meet your maker.
I mean, he's a Mind Flayer, what do you expect?
I am fury. I am death. This is your end.
So, this is a really good thing to explain. I need to figure out how to turn it off on console, because I'm actually not sure offhand. Let me take a look and see if we can figure this out. If you notice, she attacked and then immediately did her second attack, even though the enemy was dead. And because of that, you can actually waste attacks by accident. I'm gonna have this for next stream. I'm gonna figure out how to disable the automatic secondary attack for next stream. I am just not sure. If anyone knows in chat, I would be very interested to know as well, because that is something that would be useful to pass on. Because like I'll just do it quickly on. I'm gonna switch back to PC controls for a second. In PC, there's literally just toggle dual wielding button here, and this allows you to swap back and forth. I'm just genuinely not sure what the button is. Like, yeah. So anyway, I'll switch back to PS5 controls. Okay.
Still breathing, despite everything.
So another kind of fun, I don't know if it's a hack, but it's kind of silly. If an object is relatively near to you, you can move it without touching it. So if anything's ever kind of just out of your reach, you can move it over to you with your apparently telekinetic abilities. Because otherwise I'd have to walk all the way over this table and pick that up. So instead of doing that, I can just move it to me and then pick it up. And this also works with other objects. Actually, next turn I'll show you a little kind of funny interaction you can do. It also works outside the turn order in a weird way, in that it doesn't cost you an action to do this. So I'll show you how you can manipulate that later. Ooh, topaz. So we'll let the turn order go.
Nearly out of sky. It's now or never.
I always find it funny because, like, at turn 12, she usually says someone says something. Oh no, we're running out of time. And it's like, we have 12 turns left. That's so much time.
Got to move.
So we're gonna do the same magic psychic movement thing here. And again, remember to use your scan pulse to find things on the ground if you can't quite see it. It really wants me to be right on top of it. Okay, I'll grab that next turn, that's not gonna be. So Shadowheart kind of notoriously has a pretty poor accuracy rate with her spells. That's basically because so she's a half elf, which means that as a bonus, she gets this as a bonus cantrip. So that means it's not using her normal. Normally this would use her wisdom. This uses her intelligence, which is not high. Like if we bring this down, see how it says spell casting ability intelligence? Because it's a bonus spell and not a part of her regular spell book, she's using her intelligence modifier, which, it says attack roll +5. It's not. It's a +0, I think, because she has... Yeah, her int is 10, so she has a +0, so that's often why Fireball misses. And Sacred Flame is, instead of it trying to hit, it's actually a saving throw spell. So they have to roll a dex save, and for your wizard specifically, they would be using their intelligence stat because it's part of your spell list, but it's just common that people have an issue with Shadowheart missing a lot, and that's because in Act 1, a lot of the enemies you're fighting have very high dex. Goblins have decent dex, these imps have decent dex. And so they can dodge Sacred Flame, and also her spell attacks with Firebolt are bad. Just an FYI. So we're going to try this anyway, because why not? We hit and did a single damage. Sacred Flame's pretty not great up until you hit level 5. But yeah, actually, anytime you're wondering about a spell, again, the magical middle button allows you to look at all the stats of the spell and how it works. So.
I will ascend.
So we're gonna, I think that's just about everything for this opening area, so we're just gonna kind of speed through the last bits of this so we can get to the crash site and continue. And so we've been going for about 2 hours. I'm gonna go refresh my. I'm gonna finish this fight and go refresh my water. I might actually get tea because my voice is getting a little sore. And then we'll come back and we'll continue on the first part of Act 1. And we're gonna tonight we're gonna go up to entering the grove. We're gonna avoid the ruins for now. We'll come back. Usually I would say go to the ruins first, but because we're trying to avoid spoiling anything, I'm gonna avoid the ruins for now. But yeah, we'll continue with that, and we'll finish this, take a little break, and then come back to get us to the roof.
Where do I go from here? On my way.
So, kind of just as an aside, if you notice, even without his weapon, Zyke is winning the fight against the invalid
Feel
on
my
his
mistress's wrath.
own. You definitely have to intervene to help if you want to get the
I'm
achievement.
fury.
Because
I am
unfortunately,
death.
yeah, he punch. The Mind Flayer is just kind of very medium in
On the
melee
move.
combat.
No choice but to keep going.
Now, for whatever reason, the Mind Flayers have good loot on them. The Camions have nothing, so don't even bother looting them at this point. Okay, folks. Well, I'm going to leave you with this lovely little
The
cutscene
Helm's alien
and go
transponder.
refresh my drink.
You've
Everyone
made
should
it in
take.
time.
Everyone, take a second, stand up, stretch. We've been here for 2 hours. And I'm back. It's fun to watch this through because once you get through Act 1, you will have met all these people and you know who they are. Why they're here. Real talk, that piece of rubble hitting you in the face, you're 100% dead. The speed that, yeah, well, the speed that hits you at, you're just dead. Oh, also, something just catches us before we hit the ground.
As you wake, the tadpole squirms in your skull.
Okay. So what would my character do? Probably check
Other than
myself
the
for
infection,
injuries.
you're more or less intact.
Also,
A
I hope you like
miracle,
my
given
eyeshadow.
everything you've been through, but it'll all
You can
be for
finally see it in
nothing
this
if you
lighting.
don't find help soon. The tadpole is a death sentence, and the clock is ticking. You need a cure.
So, hilarious thing. On PC, you only have the right trigger thing. Like, see how it like highlights the mangled fisherman there? So, this clamshell over here, I never found this, despite having played this opening act like literally 10 times. I never found this clamshell until I played on PS5 because I was able to scan pulse and look at it. And it's not a big thing. It's literally $6, but like, also I will laugh forever that apparently if you go to camp, like I never thought about, because so the thing is, when you land here, it actually refills all your resources. It basically gives you a short rest. It actually gives you a long rest because it gives you all your spell slots back. So I never thought of taking a long rest immediately after landing. Like I get where the concept comes from, but the fact that it apparently makes Shadowheart disappear and not show up till the grove is kind of hilarious. Also, side note, anyone with first aid will tell you, this is not how you wake up someone who might have a head injury.
You're alive. I'm alive. How is this possible? I remember the ship. I remember falling. Then nothing. No, I don't recognize this place. But anything's an improvement on where we just came from. First things first, we need supplies, shelter, and most of all, a healer. We might have escaped, but we still have these little monsters in our heads. You might want to reconsider calling her a friend.
So
Looks like
Shadowheart
she ran
and
off without
Lae'zel
us.
dislike each other intensely, to the point where you can basically, if you want to farm approval for one or the other, if you choose something one likes, the other will dislike almost every single time. There are specific
We need each other.
dialogue
we
options you
both
can
know
take that
what's
they
at
both
stake.
like, but it's rare.
Can't think of better company. One thing, just before we go. I wanted to thank you again for freeing me. It would have been all too easy for you to run right past my pod, but you didn't. I'll remember that.
Shadowheart will
Lead the
remember
way.
that. So let's talk. And if you notice, after that conversation, we have both leveled up, so we're now level 2. So we'll deal with the level up in just a second. Before that,
I wonder what the next move is.
so let's talk about a couple things, but let's talk about the notable features. So notable features are both things that are inherent to the character, lore-based, and also things that you acquire in your journeys. So, like, if you have an experience which changes you in some fundamental way, and it has a mechanical... It mechanically changes how your character works, it's going to show up in your notable features. So it's good to go and take a look at this, both for your allies and for enemies, because it'll tell you things that they can do. So, Fear of Wolves. So she will literally have to make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened when she's near a wolf. She's an acolyte, so she has proficiency in insight and religion. She has her domain spells, which whatever her domain is, in this case trickery, cough cough, the worst domain. Which were, in this playthrough, I'm actually going to re-skill her as a either life or light cleric, just because one, it's thematic for certain reasons, and also it gives you access to trickery is just really niche. It's fine, but it's not great. So civil militia. When I was talking about Gale having militia training, this is the thing I was talking about. It gives them proficiency with spears, pikes, halberds, glaives, and armor proficiency with light armor and shields. So most spellcasters usually don't have shield proficiency, but a bunch of your spellcasters just randomly do, and it's very strong. Because plus 2 AC is just a lot for a spellcaster. She has Dark Vision, she has Fey Ancestry, so she has advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. So she'll never be put to sleep by a magical sleep spell. Okay. Just as a side note, tags are things that are going to control what dialogue options you have. So she's a Baldarian, she's a high half-elf humanoid Shadowheart. So all of these tags are going to change what when you're getting like dialogue trees, those tags will affect your dialogue. Okay. Also, if you ever want to check your relationships with characters, over here in their inventory screen at the very bottom, it's going to show you what their relationship is. Weirdly, in PC mode, so we're going to switch over to PC for a second.
On I go.
If you go into the character sheet on PC mode, it actually has a number. Like, I don't know why it doesn't have this on PS5. I've never found a way to find it on PS5. But it literally has, like, a straight up just a number, with 100 being the maximum. So I'm 10 out of 100 currently. And when you see that little thing that says, like, they approve or they disapprove, approvals can be +1 or +5. And disapprovals can be -1 or -5. So we're going to do a conversation with her, and I've played the game, I know what she wants to hear, so I can go through the dialogue trees to give her the correct responses. So we're at 10 right now. Let's see what happens when we have a conversation with her.
No one's stopped me yet.
Something the matter?
We should get to know each
Must
other
we?
more.
No harm in a little mystery, don't you think?
If you're not comfortable, I won't press you.
Thank you.
So we get the little
I'm
Shadowheart
sure we'll get
approves.
along perfectly well.
So let's see how that's changed. So we'll go back to
Time to
Shadowheart.
dally.
We'll look at her approval. So now we've gotten a +1. Yeah, you did. So we've gotten a +1. So now we're at approval 11. Anyway, just a little kind of thing to know, because then you can have a better idea of what's going on. Let's do our level up. And actually, you know what? We'll do our level up and we'll finish for the day, because hopefully, hopefully between now and the next time I stream, people can progress and we can kind of continue on this next area without having to, like, stop. Okay. So, Cleric of Shar. Yep. So, not really gonna get a whole lot from the first level. It's mostly, we're getting 7 more HP. We're getting more, we're getting more spell slots, but not a higher level of spells. We get our Channel Divinity charge, which is kind of neat, because that gives us access to turn undead and invoke duplicity. This is actually pretty cool if you use it. We'll actually use it in the next fight just to demonstrate what it does. I'm pretty happy with the spells we have now. This is actually very strong, but it's a melee attack. So don't underestimate it. Also, as a side note, we're just going to do this to kind of, again, show some of the potential of clerics. Bless is very strong. Completely honestly, there are very few bad spells in the game. There are one or two, but basically everything's usable, and basically everything's useful. So, Paladins get a lot at level 2. The biggest thing that we get at level 2 is your old friend Smite. This thing just hurts people. It adds 2d8 weapon damage with an additional 1d8 per level. So you can imagine that stacks up pretty quickly, and that's, yeah, it's Smite, baby. Like, you're gonna see it in the next fight. We're gonna be smiting some silly people. Yep. Oh, and we get to choose our fighting style. So, for this character is going to be a protecting character, basically. So the optimal path, if you want to build a tanky paladin, is to take defense. Just 100%. It's just a flat +1 AC. It's boring, but it works. And you know what? We're gonna take it. And as you can see, I also have command because command is broken. But because Shadowheart already has it selected, I'm gonna deselect that, and I'm gonna take Thunderous Smite instead, because Thunderous Smite is just a whole bunch of extra damage. Other notable spells to take, Shield of Faith is actually kind of insane, because you can just turn one of your characters into basically an unhittable tank at this level. I'm not going to use Compelled Duel immediately. It's useful, and we'll talk about Compelled Duel later. But, just for the sake of showing what it does, we're going to take Shield of Faith. It just gives you a flat +2 AC. So let's take a look at... So Paladins get 3 level 1 spell slots at level 2.
I'm ready.
No, sorry.
Can't give up.
Paladins get 2, count them, 2 level 1 spell slots at level 2. Paladins have very, 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 very limited spell usage. This is why a lot of people will combine Paladin with Warlock or Sorcerer. Currently Sorcerer is the meta, but either one works. You combine Warlock and Sorcerer, and you combine Paladin with Warlock or Sorcerer, because Warlock or Sorcerer gets renewable spell slots which recharge on short rest. So instead of just having 2 spell slots, you get 4 spell slots, 2 for Paladin, 2 for Warlock, and 2 of those are rechargeable. So you can smite twice a battle, every battle, which is huge, as you can imagine. Anyway. So we'll continue on with our important journey of collecting clamshells. And so it's going to feel silly because we're picking up what seems like relatively inconsequential stuff. $6 at the start of this game is actually impactful enough that it's worth taking a second. So we're going to take this. We're also going to take the pouch. Because we're going to take that pouch and we're going to use it for some storage in our... And this backpack. Oop. Important. Our dumb hat for the run. Howdy, pilgrims. So we're just gonna take this. We're gonna quickly do this kind of looting over here, and then we're gonna go do the first encounter with the intellect of ours, and that's what we're gonna call it for tonight. However, I'm gonna show you one last little secret area that most people will have missed in their first playthrough.
Fresh water. There must be a settlement somewhere nearby.
So again, we're going to loot the backpack, and then we're going to take the backpack. Also, these bucket, like, there's a whole bunch of these little things, like buckets of fish, and other just things that just give you a tiny bit of extra camp supply. Also, here's an important one. If you don't need to carry camp supply on you. You can actually multi-select all, well, okay, hold square to multi-select when you're in the menu, as a side note. You can send this all to your camp. You don't have to have it on you. You can just have it in your camp chest, and it'll still work when you're going to a long rest. Because the only time you ever use camp supplies is during long rests. So that saves you a lot of weight, because camp supplies are very heavy. Also, these barrels usually contain thieves' tools, which are at a premium at the first part of the game, so. Also a flute. Oh yeah, here, we can check if we actually have proficiency with musical instruments. Yes, so we are not proficient with musical instruments. That is a bug, so definitely need to report that. Yeah, so we can play our flute while we loot that dead kid's body. For those who haven't seen it, for anyone watching the VOD, go check out Tom Cardy's perception check music video. So right up here, just before we fight these nasty little friends, if you jump up here, not only is there a nice little view, there's a little treasure chest hidden behind here. And there's actually even 10 XP. With a nice little elixir of fire resistance in it. Also, if you're wanting to do something really spicy, you can continue up this cliff and skip that fight altogether. Because this path will take you right to the town. So it's actually technically possible to skip that first fight and go elsewhere. However, we do actually want to take that fight for various reasons. Also, there's a balsam up here, and balsam are important. Like, let's actually take a look at our alchemy. Is this okay? So no. So ashes of balsam are important because it allows you to make you a greater health potion. So it's like a tier 2 health potion. So that's a pretty good find. And actually, I'm actually very proud of you because you actually figured this out like your second try. But kind of, so before we go into this fight, we're going to give ourselves a shield of faith. So notice I have something called concentration. Now, concentration means that if I take damage, let's see if we can get a good. We're gonna look at ourselves here. Okay, so I have +2 armor class as long as I'm concentrating. So that means I have a 20 AC at level 2, which, as you can imagine, is pretty freaking good. We'll do a quick scan pulse, make sure we get all our loot.
Alright.
So we're gonna go crouchy crouch. Now notice, even though I jumped, I stayed in hiding. So you can actually both hide and like platform around. Okay, so this is a little optimization I've found. Okay, so I'm entering time-based mode here for a reason, because I wanted to stop this guy right here. Because if you notice, there's a little tank here. So if we switch to
Can't afford any mistakes.
Shadowheart,
Time
and we
to
shoot that
meet my
tank,
maker.
kills 2 of them before they get a chance to attack. So that you don't need to do that, but it's very useful
Best keep some
if
distance,
you're
so this will
starting
be a
off
short
very
fight.
squishy. It's a nice little ambush you can pull on them. And the thing is that it also teaches you that you can use the environment to... Yeah, it teaches you can use the environment to take care of enemies, and that's a huge part of this game. We're going to get into that later, and we're going to get into barrelmancy later, which is kind of, again, it's sort of an exploit.
I can be subtle sometimes.
So, okay, if you notice,
Need to stay
Shadowheart
focused.
is in initiative. She has revealed herself. I succeeded my stealth check. So
Nice and
I'm
quiet
not
now.
in initiative, and they are. So that means they're frozen in time, and I can move freely around. So I'm going to use that opportunity to do something very unfair.
Fight well. Perhaps our survival
And
isn't
that's
such
the
a distant
combat.
prospect.
Notice that they never got a single attack. So, I think we're gonna end it there for tonight, just so we don't go too far. It's also been like 2.5, almost 3 hours. Hope that was useful. The VODs will be available on my channel pretty soon, and I also have a YouTube channel, which I will make sure is on my page. Feel free to go back and look. Feel free to post questions, comments, anything. And yeah, hope this helped you play Baldur's Gate a little more easily and made it a little less confusing and daunting. For anyone on the YouTube channel, if you are interested, I'm going to be doing this as a full playthrough of the entire game. I will be avoiding spoilers as they happen, but I'll also be kind of hinting at things that might have consequences down the road. Because one thing about this game is that there's so much continuity. Not every decision you make, but a whole bunch of the what feel like minor decisions at the time end up butterfly affecting down the way. Yeah, so it's a fantastic game. Please go... The consequences, exactly. Please go play it. It won one Game of the Year for the reason. Anyway, have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.